Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking with David Latten. David, it's great to connect with you. You're the head of procurement at Logitech. We're talking on my Logitech camera right now. I shared with you, I've had this camera for 8 years. I have spare cameras, a home camera. I mean, everything I have on my computer is Logitech. And so thank you for that. But I'm looking forward to today's talk because today, Think Community, we're going to talk about making an impact and kind of following your purpose a little bit to get to a place where you can make an impact, where the business that you're in falls into alignment with kind of the soulful path of business that you're on, and how to kind of merge the two. Because, and you've heard me say this before, it's okay to be a conscious capitalist, right? The more money you make, the more people you can help. Let's start there. Logitech has initiatives to help, right? To be value-based, to have kind of a positive impact with people's spend. So let's David, welcome to the show. Let's begin there.
Yeah, sure.
What does that mean?
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. A pleasure to be here, and delighted to hear the camera is a Logitech camera. I hope the microphone is too, but we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about the microphone.
I didn't mention the microphone.
So yeah, let me start really. So I think a personal angle to that is I've had a long and winding career really that led me to procurement at Logitech, and I think the piece I've been missing really in early parts of my career was wanting to really make an influence, be involved in what a business might do or could do rather than what it has done. I came from a finance background, as we were talking earlier on, and I think having an impact is really rewarding. Like having a job where you think you're having an impact on the world. We're living in an era where there's burnout due to COVID and other pressures. It's very hard to attract the right talent to certain professions. Procurement certainly has that. But if you can make your role rewarding and you feel like you're really making an impact, I mean, how cool is that? How attractive can that be to a profession? And I think that's kind of where my mind has always been, that I've wanted to make a difference. And even I do procurement for a large organization. We're a $5 billion company. You could easily fall into this trap of procurement is doing many things, one of which is making sure we optimize cost. You know, what am I doing? I'm optimizing cost for a big business. When I'm retired on my deck chair, what will I be thinking? What have I really done? I've saved money for a big company. And on one level, that's true. And I've occasionally thought in the past, do you know what? I could at least do that for a struggling NGO. At least I'd be saving money for a struggling NGO right there. Yeah. But I think the key point is, and you mentioned it yourself, there's been this idea of stakeholder capitalism for quite a while now. Stakeholder capitalism kind of is capitalism nowadays, really, I think. I mean, when you look at it, there's the generational shift. Millennials are going to leadership. Gen Zs are entering the economy. Other generations, historically, we've kind of said it, but I've always wondered how we followed through with it. But those generations will not work for a company unless they feel that they're really making a difference.
Yeah.
They won't buy from a company if they're not making a difference. So it really is, stakeholder capitalism is capitalism really nowadays. Yeah. And I think to entwine that with my personal sort of backstory.
But wait, let's pause for 1 second. I want to ask you a question. So what is, just bring some kind of texture to it, right? So, you know, how is buying a Logitech, buying anything from Logitech, make it, how is the impact for the purchaser, and what's the impact and the message that you're sending out to the consumer community that you target?
Yeah. Well, I guess the power of the consumer has been there since the beginning of time, hasn't it? The power of the consumer to dictate business behavior. And I think that is true in corporate procurement too. That we're buying from other companies. If we ask them to do things, or if we use that influence to request they do things, and if we don't buy from them unless they are doing some good things, that's the real heartbeat of corporate procurement. It's the same with consumer power too. And I think it's been talked about for a while, but I think you're really genuinely seeing that now, aren't you? That there really is a movement towards supporting companies that are doing the right thing. And that's very important. It's important to Logitech that we do the right thing. It's a core value of ours. Equality and environment is a core value of ours. What we really mean by that in plain English, John, I guess, is that we're going to have an impact on this world. We're a $5 billion company that make consumer electronics. We want to make sure that we really do make our impact as positive one as possible towards the really important topics of today. And one part of that is we have a brand. We're a well-known global company. Our influence needs to go beyond our borders, and we have that muscle to do that because we're a well-known, we're not a massive multinational, but we're well-known. You're familiar with our brand. If you really want to make a difference, it's imperative that goes beyond your own borders too. And in my particular sort of role of procurement, you're talking procurement's language right there. Most of my time is spent talking with external people. It's sort of leadership at suppliers and places like that. So I think where I land on all that is that I can have way more impact if I want to wake up on any given morning thinking I'm actually making a difference to something here. And surely everyone wants to think that. That's a really rewarding thing to be thinking. I can have way more impact doing what I'm doing at a $5 billion company than I probably could at this sort of struggling NGO, as I called it. So I think it's consumer led in some cases where companies aren't progressive. We all know there are some companies out there that don't have it in their DNA. They're not necessarily progressive. They're gonna fail pretty quickly because it's becoming really consumer driven. And like I said, the new generations that are entering the workforce and they're becoming the main players. It's
well, and also not only the buyers. I just want to kind of pause there for a second. But it's in recruiting. As a business coach, I'm a business coach. I work with solopreneurs to Fortune companies all over the world, and from the C-level suite managers and salespeople. And what I see is in recruiting today, the people that are being interviewed are also kind of turning the questions to the other side of the table of what are you doing to make an impact in the world? And those people who are very hard to find, it's hard to find great, are asking questions of the company. What are you doing? They want to make sure that their personal values are in alignment. You were talking about your core values. I think people, especially the younger generations, the millennials and the Gen Zs, are more in alignment with their own core values, and they want to be in alignment with the values of the company. So I think not only consumer, but to get great talent today too.
Oh, enormously. Like I've experienced that too. Like I think I've done interviews in the last few years or so, and I'm being interviewed more than they are. It's really is. It's a two-way street about. I'm interested to know whether you want to hire me, David. But what I'm really interested in is, do I want to work for you? That's what I'm really interested in personally, and also the company as a whole. And that's great to see because I think companies should be challenged that way too.
Yeah, let's talk about making an impact. A lot of companies are figuring this out. It's a topic in the boardroom. It starts from the top. It works its way through the organization. So how does a company who doesn't feel like they're making the impact that they want to or need to, how do they figure out that path? How did Logitech figure out their path? What's some insight you can give people to kind of raise the frequency, raise the vibration of the conversation that they're having in that boardrooms today?
Yeah, no, great question, John. And I'll try and answer it conceptually with the sort of path that I've been on and Logitech have been on. And it should be something that can be relevant to all organizations, really. So I think starting from the very top, we know there are really big challenges for society around the environment, around social issues, etc. And the UN codified those with the Sustainable Development Goals back in 2015. The targets were set that we'll hit them by 2030. And, these are really big, ambitious targets. We're talking gender equality by 2030, reduced inequalities, lots of environmental targets by 2030. That felt a comfortably far away time in 2015. It's getting really close now, and we're not hitting a lot of those targets. So I think bold action is needed is point number one. Point number two, there's some really interesting research I read from Edelman recently, Edelman Trust Barometer. And corporations are actually trusted most by society to do something about this, trusted more than the media, that's hardly surprising, trusted more than governments, trusted even more than NGOs. There's a trust. And for trust, I'm kind of reading it almost as there's an expectation that we trust you're going to do something about it and we expect you to do something about it. So I think corporations really have a power. I think society is asking them to do something about it. And frankly, there's a huge competitive reason why you have to do something about it. It's not a choice anymore. So I think that's the context. In terms of what can you do, it's the old cliche that no one can do everything, of course, but everyone can do something. And when I say something, I mean, whether you're a corporation, take Logitech, for example, what is our something? Where does our brand resonate? Where does our IP have most impact? Who are we as a company? What's our DNA? What is that something? And if every company asks themselves that, if you're in financial services, it will be different to Logitech and different to a manufacturing company or whatever. At Logitech, I think, we're consumer electronics, as we said. Our DNA, our IP is really our design and engineers.
Yeah.
It's that real tech talent. It's STEM. As soon as you mention the word STEM, people, immediately get down a sort of gender, women in STEM question. So Logitech have a real resonance around women in STEM and gender. Digital inclusion is another big topic around how can we make we're that touch point, as you said, between laptops and devices and people. We can make it really accessible. In environment, it's carbon, plastics, of course, because we make consumer electronics. They're all Logitech something. I think if anyone in a leadership position at a business asks them what is our something, they'll quickly get to some answers. And then I think the flip side of that is, well, I'm in procurement. I spend most of my time talking externally. How can I help Logitech really leverage those something? So how can I drive forward the women in STEM agenda? How can I drive forward the sort of environmental impact, etc.? I think if you go with that thought process, you'll very quickly get to what is your something. And I mean, what is John's something and my something as much as a company's. But
Yeah,
that's the kind of flow we took. And I would hope that's every business could really work out there. Oh, wow, do you know what? We could have a real big impact on whatever. I think any company, if they just ask that simple question, could get a good grasp of where they, and it's all about having the most impact, because we can't do everything, obviously. So where if what we do, we want to make damn sure it's going to make the biggest impact, because we can't do everything.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's rewind and talk about your journey, right? You had talked about you were in finance, weren't really feeling that you were making an impact. I think a lot of people feel that way. I hear that from a lot of people that I talk to everywhere. And yet saying it and doing something about it are two totally different things. There's a lot of, sometimes people become complacent. They get used to kind of their flow of how things are. So to move like you've moved is a journey in its own. So talk about kind of the feeling and then how you just executed on that to kind of bridge to your next career move.
Yeah. So I think I ended up in finance, as we said. I think that happened because I was never an academic, far from it. In fact, I didn't really fit into the sort of hierarchical school system at all. I think I was always asking these really annoying, from a teacher perspective, probably sort of curious questions, not about the content, but more about, well, why does it have to be this way? Or can't we do it that way? Or, challenging the status quo. I was quite often struggling with that. But if I could do anything, what I would say is that I was a numbers person. So, that was leading to finance. And I did get this sense that it's a really great business qualification to have. I mean, being comfortable with data, being able to do your own analysis, general leadership across all sorts of functions, it's a useful qualification to have. So that's where I went. And I think that was the right path to take, really. But yeah, like we were saying earlier on, I wasn't a finance for finance's sake kind of person. I was always asking them, well, so what? Like, I can do this analysis, but I'd far rather make sure that John and David make the right decision as a result of this analysis, rather than just dotting the I's and crossing T's. So that's where I wasn't quite right. And I think a few things about making the shift. Mine was an internal shift at Logitech, which is easier. I didn't do it externally. It is easier. It was a move into a different function internally. But I think the questions I asked myself are valid, even if you were going to do it externally. And they were three questions, really. The first question was, does the role I'm going to move to, will that excite me? Will it be something new for me? Will it answer that question? Like I was asking myself, will this mean that I'm impacting what a business could do or might do? And I was moving into a procurement role, managing certain categories of spend. And yeah, that was true. I didn't realize how true it was at the time, but that was true from a sort of tactical level of doing sourcing exercises and things. So there was that question. And I think I always hesitate to use the word ambitious. I suppose I am ambitious. The reason I hesitate to use the word is that I'm ambitious in the sense that I'm always looking for a new challenge. So I think the second question I was asking myself was, will this role be able to progress to something else, either in terms of seniority, or can I expand the remit of it? And the answer to that was yes. I didn't really know procurement, in all honesty, at the time, so I thought that was the answer. I've learned now that it was in spades. It was a absolutely yes. You can do a lot with that role. And then the third and probably most important question was, will the person that's going to be leading the team I'm going into, will they be the right person to empower me to grow in that role and to spread the role further? So they were the three questions I asked myself. And this was about 7 or 8 years ago. I thought the answer was yes. And I'm glad to say, sat here now, Jon, that the answer was yes to those. Yeah. Because I think, every role can have an impact, and great leaders and great organizations will let you naturally develop that role. Like even in my role, I've progressed seniority wise, but procurement was quite a strict kind of procurement role at first. We then went into supplier diversity, which was kind of a values angle of it, and trying to do the right thing by working with underrepresented groups. It's now gone into trying to influence the industry itself. So I think if the answer is yes to all those questions, and if you want to really spread what you do, then that leader, I think, is the key one. Probably if you're given that autonomy and power to do that, then, and if you want to, then you can really spread there. Yeah. So that's what I did. The one thing I didn't have to be too much of, but this is important too, there was a slight element of bravery. It was an internal switch, admittedly, but I had no idea what procurement was, really. I sort of accepted the role thinking it sounded really cool, and I thought it was going to be great. And then I worked out afterwards that I actually did like it. If you're doing this externally, which a lot of people may be, then I think being brave and being curious is going to feel way more like a cliff edge if you're doing it externally. But if you feel the answer is yes to those three questions, within reason, go do it.
Good. Those are great questions. Good. Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about just kind of where the world is right now, right? AI is just, since November 30th, with ChatGPT coming on board, kind of accelerated a lot of change in the world. I think it's, I think we're kind of at an iPhone 1 level where it is. Yeah. Microsoft is, coming around. How is AI? How are you guys looking at AI and other technologies? What does your business look like 3, 4, 5 years from today?
Yeah, I think the answer for Logitech for that, I'll probably go back 5 years to sort of give you a bit of context around it, and then hopefully look forward into the future. When I first joined Logitech around a decade or so ago, there was a real feeling in the industry that our core originally was keyboards and mice, like we said, connecting into old-fashioned PCs. The assumption at the time was that market is going to gradually die. Back in those days, tablet accessories were the big thing. Everyone was talking about tablets. So the thought was very much, we need to find some new growth areas, and that's absolutely smart and the right thing to do. So that's what we were doing. We moved into video collaboration. Gaming was already big, but that became bigger still, and some other areas too. But I think the interesting thing is that PC sort of peripheral market didn't die. It's still here today. We're doing it now. I think it's really hard to see where things go. But the smart thing is, of course, looking for growth markets. And at Logitech, we're well placed around really big macro trends. The company escalated dramatically during COVID. Yeah. And I think when our CEO has spoken about it, he talks around the point that we were in the right place for these macro trends around virtual working is increasing, working from anywhere is increasing, e-gaming is getting massive. The pandemic just accelerated it by quite a few times. But
how many cameras did you sell the first 6 months? March 2020, and then through the end of that year, or those March, April, May, June.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number. What I can tell you is that we could not make them fast enough. We could not get them into the store, and our revenue 2019 we were a mid 2-point-something billion dollar company. 2020 we were a 5-point-something billion dollar company, and we're kind of we're staying around that sort of size now. So yeah, huge growth. But I realize I haven't answered your question. I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I look at my role and my team around AI, and people sometimes immediately go to this whole, oh yeah, but which roles are going to be taken out by this? Like, you no longer need some support functions potentially if AI and chatbots and everything is there. And maybe that's true, but I think what's more true is it's going to empower those functions to do way more than they used to, do way more quicker, better, etc. than they used to.
My buddy, I just interviewed a guy, my buddy who was the former head of innovation at PayPal is now, he left PayPal and now I just interviewed him. His name is Mike Tedasco, and he does a ton of AI stuff right now. And when I interviewed him, he shared one of the best ways to look at AI is kind of as a partner. And I thought that was really great the way he talked about it, because that is kind of how I use it. It doesn't replace, it just empowers if you use it, I think, the right way. And I thought it was a great perspective on how to use AI.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. And one answer to your question, John, I'd probably pivot it slightly, that I think I read some really interesting research recently, like I say, about the big topics for society, environmental issues, social issues, and we need to move to that kind of net zero economy of tomorrow, the jobs of tomorrow, and skills in AI and machine learning, and that's real core to that. I think I read some really interesting research recently that a lot of these industries of tomorrow, we need to move in that direction. Everyone accepts that, but we've got to be really careful because they're actually quite male dominated. They may well be dominated in terms of other inequalities too, but there's we have to be really careful to make sure that the economy of tomorrow not only is a net zero economy, but it's also an equal and just economy. And we're not exacerbating we're not creating new problems or exacerbating existing problems.
I agree.
And I think AI, that's probably true to say that. I think from the research I've seen, it is a massively male dominated industry, and that shouldn't stop the progress, but it should just make a pause for thought about, we need to make sure that we do this right this time.
Right. If everybody's the same, then it actually won't probably accelerate as fast as it could. I agree with that. That.
But I feel like I'm not in the cool crowd. I haven't actually used ChatGPT yet.
Oh, you got to use it. It's great. Yeah, ChatGPT, Jasper. Check it out. Play around. You'll get a kick out of it. It's great.
I will.
I use it now to do research. So if I'm looking for something, I'm thinking, I want to study whatever it is. I use it as kind of the 2023 encyclopedia. I just kind of type in and it gives me just great data. It's great.
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, I do need to get on board. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, quick speed round. You ready, David?
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
A book or a TED Talk that's had the biggest impact on you?
Ooh, I've got a good one here, John. I'll probably have to explain it a little bit. It's a very English example. The best book, I'd say the most influential book that I've read is called The Art of Captaincy by Mike Brearley. A great book. Mike Brearley was actually a captain of the England cricket team back in the early 80s. And he wasn't the best player, far from it. He was handling a really talented team with some very strong personalities, and his whole book is about the leadership lessons he learned in elite sport and also business. And it's really interesting and very translatable that he was the first name on the team sheet as the captain, far from it, because he was the most sort of high performing, he wasn't the best at cricket, but he was the captain and he got the best out of the other players, which ultimately is what a leader should be doing. So I think it's called The Art of Leadership by Mike Brearley. Don't get scared away by the cricket angle of it. It's a fascinating read.
Well, he also has, I'm just looking at it on Amazon right now. He's The Art of Captaincy, the Principle of Leadership in Sports and Business.
Yeah, he relates it to business. So no, I'd recommend it. Yeah, like I say, don't get scared off by the English sort of cricket angle.
Yeah. Okay, good. I like it. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
This is a very business answer. When I first got to the sort of more senior leadership positions, I asked a CFO of the company at the time, what advice have you got for a first-time leader about, what should I be thinking of? And his advice was very simple, but I think really powerful. He said, just think of every decision as if you're the owner of this business, as if you're the owner of Logitech.
That's a great one.
It's a big company with big budgets, but think of it as if it's your own money. Think of it as if it's your own company. And I've kept that with me ever since.
I love it. I'm always looking to evolve my level of discipline. And I find that many people like yourselves, many people in business are always they can connect their discipline with their success. So what's your formula for discipline and or success?
Yeah, geez, I certainly I wouldn't feel comfortable describing myself in the sort of discipline continuum. I don't think. I think if I've got any recipe for success, I think it's inherently personal, isn't it, John?
Yeah.
And going back to my school years, I'm very curious. I think it's really important for me to feel like I am doing something in my role and feeling like I'm making an impact. That's meant that I've actually changed my role and levels quite a lot in my career. I think so. So that's what's important to me. Always feeling like I've got something to make a difference with, and my personality is very much wired that way. Like I said, around my questions, I'm always asking. What I don't think I'd be very good at is kind of keeping the status quo or kind of keeping a steady hand on the tiller. Before I worked at Logitech, I was in a consulting role, and I was always attracted by this department's on fire. No one knows what the hell they're doing. This is in deep trouble. Okay, cool. That sounds great. Let's do that. So I think my one rule for me, but it would be a different answer for everyone else, would be like, go to what you enjoy. Go to what, if you're doing the right thing, you should jump out of bed in the morning and you should feel like you're making a difference and an impact. That's going to be different for everyone else. But in my case, it's always feeling like there's the next challenge or something new to be done. If I was looking after a steady ship, I'd actually, open disclosure, I wouldn't be very good at it. It's I'm always looking for something that needs a bit of, let's blow it up and then and see what else we can build. But if what you're doing gets you jumping out of bed in the morning, great. Life is all too short if it's not doing that.
Yeah, I agree. That was great. Well, with the last question, finish the sentence. One thing everybody can do as a very first step to make an impact is?
I would say challenge the status quo, ask questions. I think I didn't realize this when I first sort of joined the corporate world, that when you're a leader, you don't have that on the ground level so much. What you rely on is that curiosity, is that kind of just ask the questions. Like, why is it done this way? Can't it be done that way? A bit like I was at school, I guess. I think I would say just be curious. Do it in the right way, of course. there are right and wrong ways to do it, but through the right channels, just always be asking the good questions. And I think if you do that, you'll start getting great answers.
I tell all my clients, those that ask the questions control the conversation. A lot of times it's too many people I find that I coach or that come to me to get coaching, or as I do my executive advising, people talk too much. They tell too much. They talk at people too much. And really to own a room, to influence, to control kind of where you want to go. Not that you need to be a control freak, but to control, to get the best out of everyone, no matter what role, sales, manager, leadership. You just have to ask the best questions. I agree with you. Actively listen, and then know what the next question is to raise the awareness, that to then get everybody on the same kind of frequency so you can collectively make change. And that's what I love about what you've talked about today. Think community. David shared a lot of things. As you know, I'm a business coach. I work with successful people all over the world who are stuck, and I get them unstuck. And I love this podcast because I get to have guests, David, like you, who can share things that get people unstuck. A couple highlights that I'm pulling from our conversation today: be bold, be curious, be brave, make an impact, make a social impact, and be curious. Ask great questions. So I appreciate you sharing all of that. Logitech has been, I'm very grateful for Logitech. I know there's a lot of cameras out there, but, I started my coaching business about 8 years ago, and I'm in Michigan, so it was local, and I was doing business all over the country and internationally. And the only way I could do that was with a great camera. And so it opened up, Zoom and StreamYard and Logitech had a great impact on me to open up my business to the world. So I'm very grateful and very appreciative of everything that you guys do, because through what you do, I'm able to do what I do, and help people get unstuck and grow. So David, tell people how they can connect with you and who your ideal clients are and where they can learn more about you guys.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please happily reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. And I think on top of that, the other things I'd love to connect with people on is, like I said, find your something. At Logitech, we're doing a few initiatives about really pushing forward some of our something around gender equality. There's a coalition for gender fair procurement. Genderfairprocurement.com is the website. Have a look on there. Like I say, what I really want people to go away and think is, what is our something, our company, and in my role, what is your something? If you want to progress gender equality, genderfairprocurement.com is where you can find that, and you can get me on LinkedIn as well, David Latten, Latten. Happy to speak with anyone.
Awesome, David. Thanks so much. Think community. Thanks so much. Reach out to David if you want to connect with him. If you want to connect with me, you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. And if you want to share this with anybody, please do rate and review it. That'd be great. David, thanks. This was great. I enjoy getting to know you, your journey, Logitech, learning more about what I'm looking at every day. The camera, instead of my receding hairline, it's easier to look at. So thank you very much for the time, and Think Community. Thanks so much. Thanks, David.
No, thanks for having me, John, and thanks everyone for listening. Really, really enjoyed it.
Me too.